Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Melissa. All right, so I maintain our Florida Special Collection of rare books and maps and other Florida treasures. And I also answer reference questions from folks all over the state. So if you send us an email or you give us a call, there's a 1 in 5 chance that I'll be the librarian who helps you that day. I'm also joined by my colleague, Hendry Miller, who is our reference archivist. And some of the things he does is he helps people access archival records here at the State Archives, and he also refers people to appropriate resources if the State Archives doesn't have what they're looking for. And like me, he does outreach as well, and he does outreach to genealogists around the state and also state employees. And just as an aside, the State Library and Archives are part of the Division of Library and Information Services, and that's part of the Department of State. And we are on the second floor of the R.A. Gray building in Tallahassee, about a block away from the Capitol. And just to let you all know, we also have a Capitol branch of the State Library that's on the 7th floor of the Capitol. And that's primarily geared towards legislators and their staff. But our librarian, Marva, will help just about anybody who comes in, and she'd be glad to help you with any questions you might need. All right, so today's topics, we're going to talk about how a bill becomes a law, which in turn becomes a statute. So we're going to go through the bills, the laws of Florida, Florida statutes, and then Hendry will be talking about legislative histories and legislative intent research. And then we'll leave some time at the end for questions. Now, some of our services, we have a variety of services available for state government employees. So the State Library and Archives offer special assistance for state employees because we are mandated by statute to serve all your information needs, and we will do our very best to help you with whatever it is you need. You can reach us by phone or by email, and we also offer electronic databases and online catalogs 24/7. So if you're working late, or you're getting started on a project, you can access those anytime you want. We also offer desktop delivery of books and articles, and so for books, we will mail them directly to your office, and for journal articles and magazine articles, we will email those directly to you. So what I want to show you next is our legal information portal, and that's at library.florida.gov/legal. And don't worry about writing that down. We'll have that in a follow-up email, everything that we're talking about today. So now we're on the website, and we're going to check it out. So this is our legal information portal. This is a home base for attorneys, paralegals, other legal professionals, anyone who works in the criminal justice profession. This is the place for you to get started with your research. Some of the things you can do is you can apply for your state library card, which you'll need to use many of the services that we offer. And you can also do desktop delivery for books and articles, and those links are right here. And we've also got some key legal resources that are useful to a wide variety of people, and those are over here on the right-hand side. And we also have some tutorials as well, so if you want to learn about how to use something in the state library, more than likely it's on our YouTube channel. So what I'm going to start with is showing you some of how to find bills through the Florida Senate's website. This is a major step in the legislative process, and we've got the Florida Senate website right up here, and you can get to that at flsenate.gov. That's the Senate's homepage. I'll spend a little bit of time here. You can get a lot of useful information here, especially during session and right before session. You can find legislative calendars, you can find bills that have been filed today, so on and so forth. And so what I want to focus on is how to find bills. So let's go to the session tab here and click on bills. All right, so usually this shows the most recent session, or in this case it would be the upcoming session, 2018, but I have it here for 2016 because I want to show you the complete life cycle for one particular bill. So you can change that here. If you just see the year by itself, that means it's the regular session, and if you see a year with a letter after it, that means it's a special session. So you can search either chamber by itself, Senate or House, or you can search both together. Generally, when I'm getting started on looking for a bill, I like to search both at the same time, unless I know exactly what I'm looking for. So let's do a practice search for the 2016 regular session. Let's type in trade secrets. All right, so that brings back 7 bills of various status. So you've got the title over here, the number over here on the left-hand side, and you've got the location and some of the last actions that were performed on that bill. And looking at the location, you can learn a lot. So laid on table means that bill has essentially been suspended indefinitely and probably won't be considered again during that legislative session. And the other thing that's here is in committee in council, and that means that a bill has died. So it never made it. So in this case, this bill never made it past the Higher Education Committee. And if you see became law, then that means that that bill became a law, and it's going to be in the laws of Florida and also the Florida statutes. So let's check out Senate Bill 180. All right, so you can get a lot of information here. This is the bill summary page and tells you a lot of information. Under the bill history tab, it'll tell you how the bill progressed through the Senate and House and all the actions that were taken and on what dates. And eventually it tells you the chapter number in the laws of Florida that the bill became. And you can also see that this says CSSB. That means that was a committee substitute. And what this means is that the committees that this bill went through, it was changed and marked up to such a degree that the bill essentially became a new bill entirely. And so it's quite different than what was originally presented to those committees. You can see related bills in the House and Senate as well, amendments and analyses, vote history, and a whole lot more. I've already got the PDF of the bill text loaded so that we don't have to wait. So let's check that out. So here you can get the entire text of the bill, and you can see the line numbers on the left, so you can easily refer to a particular passage. One thing that you'll see in bills and also the laws of Florida is that if you see an underlined term, that means that it's an addition. And if you see something that's crossed out or stricken, that's called a strike through, and that means that something was deleted from the bill. Any questions about that before we move on? All right, so the next thing I want to show you all are the laws of Florida, and these are called session laws, and what these are is these are the final bills for the legislative session in the order that they were passed. So we've got laws of Florida right here, and this is available from the Legal Information Portal, by the way. And again, usually it loads the latest session, but we're working with 2016 because that's the latest year until very recently that statutes were available. So we'll be working with that. And the bills are presented in the order of passage. All right. So what we have here is we remember that 2016-5 was our law number from the bills page, and that's our same law. That's our same bill, trade secrets, and it even tells you the SB 180 or S 180, which was the number of the bill in the Senate, and we can check that out. And one thing that we should note is that the description is not necessarily the same as the title of the bill. The title of the bill is usually quite on the longer side, and the description is just kind of a shorthand so that you can scan it quickly and figure out what that book might or what that bill might be about. Now, I've got the bill loaded up here. These are very high quality PDFs, so they take a minute to load. So in practice, if you're going through these, you might want to go and make a cup of coffee or something like that, or relax, stretch for a little bit, and come back. So we've got Chapter 2016-5. It's identical to what we were looking at in the bills, but again, this is a session law. And these can be very useful for legislative history, and Hendry will talk about that a little bit later. And you can notice, too, that it says committee substitute, just like our bill did. So the only thing that's a little bit different is that there's no line numbers, so you have to, using Control F is a handy trick for finding terms and words that you need to know. And if you scroll down, you'll see that this law modifies several statutes in the Florida statutes. So for example, the first one it modifies is 812.081. And so by looking at the law, you can find out what statutes it modifies, and then you can find that corresponding language in the Florida statutes. So any questions about this before we move on? All right, before we move on to the Florida statutes, I want to show you one more thing. Now, what I've shown you here, the laws of Florida, they go back to 1997, as you can see here. But the state library is digitizing the complete run of the laws of Florida, going back to I believe 1861, so we're going back in time. So I wanted to show you those as well. So we've got some of the very early laws going up to the Civil War right here, and then we're going back in time, and we most recently scanned 1949, and so many of these laws are available online, and we're continually scanning more. If you need an older law of Florida, just give us a call or send us an email for something that's not online here, and we will send that to you for no charge. So I want to bring up the 1955 extra session, which is what they called a special session back in the day, and bring that up. And you can see it's just a little bit different. They called it back then the Acts and Resolutions adopted by the legislature of Florida. So if you're looking through legal citations for older laws, some of the nomenclature might differ a bit, but it's the same stuff. And again, these are pretty high quality PDFs, so you can Control F and and find whatever terms you need. And that is basically how those work. And any questions about that before I continue? All right, the next thing I'm going to show you is Online Sunshine, which is where the online Florida statutes are hosted. So this is the web page for the legislature as a whole. So it's a different website from floridasenate.gov for the Senate and myfloridahouse.gov for the House. You can find a number of things here. There's a link to the laws of Florida we just talked about. Also, the Florida Constitution is online, the latest Florida Constitution. And also the Florida statutes are online. So let's check that out. All right, so those are the 2017 Florida statutes. Let's go back to 2016, what we were just working with. All right, so these are codified laws, and what that means is they're arranged by subject rather than in the order that they were passed. So you can either search or you can browse. The search isn't great, so if you can browse and you have an idea of a statute number, that's the better way to do it. And they're all organized by title, and so title is going to cover a very broad topic. So in this case, homesteads and exemptions, that's very broad, and that uses Roman numerals. So let's go down to Title 48 and go to Crimes. All right, and so that is a pretty comprehensive list of many of the crimes that there are statutes for. in Florida, and each crime more or less constitutes its own chapter using Arabic numerals. And that's going to be a more focused topic than a title. So let's go to Chapter 812, Theft, Robbery, and Related Crimes. And that's got all the statutes listed for you. So what I want to do is go to 812.081, and that's trade secrets. And if you remember, that was listed in the laws of Florida, the law of Florida that we looked at as being one of the statutes that was modified. So let's check that out. So what you can actually do is you can scroll down and find some of the different language that was modified by each law of Florida that affects this statute. And if you compare this statute by year, you can see how the language of the statute has changed over time. All right. The next thing I'm going to show you, these are current statutes, and these go back to 1997. And if you're looking for older statutes, the Law Library at FSU has digitized those from 1955 to 1996. So let's check those out. They recently redesigned this site, so it's much easier to use than it was in the past. It's pretty similar to the Online Sunshine website we just looked at. And so I'm going to do a search for nuclear. We're going to get away from trade secrets now and do something totally different. So let's do just a general keyword search. And this brings back, this first result is a statute from 1957 on the Florida Nuclear Development Commission. Now, I've got that loaded so we don't have to wait around. And so this is Chapter 290 of the 1957 Florida statutes, and it's talking about the Florida Nuclear Development Commission. Now, in the 50s and 60s, Florida had a number of initiatives to explore atomic energy and how that might affect public policy. And so if you go back in time, you'll see a number of publications and statutes and laws and other things that talk about nuclear energy. So you'll see that this chapter created this particular agency. It's a pretty interesting statute from a historical perspective. Now, these statutes go back to 1955, and if you need older statutes, you can call or email the state library, and we will provide those to you for no charge. Any questions at this point? All right, let's turn it over to Hendry.
All right, thank you, Blake, and thank you for all the participants here in this webinar. So Blake has shown you how to navigate statutes, chapter laws, and bills through the resources with the links from the Legal Information Portal. With this information that we've already gone over, the state archives can help you get legislative analyses on the bill, or what are often called legislative histories. These analyses are created by legislative committees, and they show intent or rationale behind a particular bill. For different eras, there are 3 ways to get this type of information. So from 2011 to the present, it's at flsenate.gov for both the Senate and the House. For 1998 to 2010, it's at archive.flsenate.gov. And from the years 1969 to 1997, these records are in the State Archives physical holdings. And we'll talk a little bit more about each one of these so you can see the different ways to access this information. For our purposes, the bill number and year will be the most helpful for you in searching this for the online materials. So if we're at this, which should be familiar now, this 2016 statute 812.081, if you come down to the bottom of the page to this history section, it tells you all the laws that have amended or affected this statute. So we'll use this history section to access some of the legislative intent or legislative histories. So we'll go back to this familiar bill, this 2016-5, which, as Blake has shown us, is Senate Bill 180 from 2016. So we're going to go to the flsenate.gov site, and then what you'll do is you'll type in the bill number in this little menu up at the top, so 180, and then select the appropriate year in the drop-down menu and select Go. And so that's loading, and then what we do, we've already seen this page, but this is the bill history on this Senate Bill 180 relating to trade secrets. And what we can see here is the history when the bill was filed, what committees that it was referred to, and committee actions. And usually when we see that it was referred to a committee, that committee, those committee staffers are going to create an analysis which explains the intent of the bill. And you can navigate through these tabs up here and see different analyses. So they have pre-meeting and post-meeting analyses where they might have made different votes or amendments to the bill and explained the intent of the bill. And if we go back to this bill history page, if we scroll up here, we'll notice that this bill had a companion bill, which we can also see from the related bills tab here. And we can also scroll down through the bill history and see that when this bill was in the House, it was substituted in favor of House Bill 55. And so when you're looking for legislative history or legislative intent, it's often wise to click and read the analyses, and you can just select the link for the bills that were substituted or companion bills, so you can get a more full picture of the intent of the law. So that's how you do it from the most recent bills, 2011 to the present. For 1998 to 2010, you can access this information on the website archive.flsenate.gov. And once again, the materials for both the House and the Senate are available on this site. And despite the name Archive in the title, it doesn't have any connection to the state archives. It is maintained by the Florida Senate. It has a similar search function to FL Senate, but if you see, all the menu items are over here on the left-hand side of the screen. So you'll come down to this Jump to Bill section and just select, I'm just going to show you a random year and a random bill, 2005-222. And you don't need to type in House Bill or Senate Bill, just the bill number, and we'll be able to pull it up. Select Go, and it pulls up this bill history for Senate Bill 222 relating to schools. And if we see in the history here that this bill died in the Committee of Education Appropriations, but there are comparable and similar bills up here. So if you see reference to this, it's worthwhile to take a look at some of these other bills and look at the staff analyses on those to see the intent behind them. So the materials that we've talked about already that are available online at flsenate.gov and archive.flsenate.gov, the state archive still receives physical records that would replicate these staff analyses. And so, like I said, these are available from 1998 to the present. And occasionally we have additional materials that might not have been put online, and this is true especially for the earliest years up to about 2003 or 2004. So if some of the material that you access online doesn't answer the questions that you have, you can give us a call at the State Archives and we can check and see if we have any additional materials in our physical holdings. So that's how you access materials from 1998 to 2010. So if we go back to our statute, after this 2016 bill, the next bill that affects our statute 812.081 is 97-102. And so this allows us to talk about how to get the legislative records from our physical holdings at the state archives. The best way to do that is just to contact the archives reference staff for assistance. we'll have our phone number and email address available in the handout materials, and provide the chapter law number that you need or the bill number and year. And what we can do is we can research and compile all the relevant materials, such as the staff analyses, vote sheets, or any additional materials that might indicate intent of the law. We can provide research on 2 bills per agency per day, and we try for a 24-hour turnaround time. And for state agencies, we can just scan the materials in and email them to you at no charge for state agencies. And since we can generally work on 2 bills per day, it's usually worth your while to prioritize which bills you need. So you can go to the laws of Florida and read each of these to see if you really need the intent on it. So for example, Chapter 97-102, if we go to the laws of Florida, I've already got it pulled up. This is a Florida Statutes Revisers Bill. And what these types of bills do are make grammatical or editorial or other technical changes in the statutes. And they might also remove obsolete or redundant language. So I've got this one pulled up. You see this is a very large file. This is the bill itself, and you can see that this bill is 858 pages, and it affects all of these statutes. So there's a good chance that this statute, this law 97-102, will affect the statute that you're interested in, but we don't really have any intent on these revisers bill. They just update the language in the statute. So that's where it's worth your while to read the bill and see if you really need the information. So the materials that we have in the holdings of the state archives are from 1969 to 1997. The state archives was formed in 1969, as were the modern legislative record-keeping processes. And bills until about the mid-1970s may not have as much material or any material because they were still sort of ironing out the details of the legislative record-keeping process. So for this bill, Chapter 85-34, which was House Bill 373 in 1985, and you see here, Act relating to trade secrets. I'll look this one up. We do have materials, legislative intent materials for this one, but for the 74-136, we don't have any materials. So for bills older than 1969 or materials or bills that we don't have any legislative materials on, you might be able to find some information in the House and Senate journals. And these are word searchable online. I just wanted to show you an example of what might be in those. These will show the committee assignments, and they'll have the text of floor amendments. So if the bill was amended on the floor, they'll publish the text of those amendments in the House and Senate journals. And it also shows the votes on amendments and votes on the bill. So you can, like I said, you can search these. We're just going to search 1993 Senate journals. And the best way to search them is put your search terms in quotation marks, so SB 158, click search. And this brings up the 12 results in the Senate journals where this bill was discussed or introduced and assigned to a committee or discussed on the floor. So I've already got the PDF loaded here for March 18th, where Senate Bill 158, one amendment was withdrawn from a previous day, and then they proposed a new amendment. And like I say, here you can see the text of that proposed amendment. And once again, like so many of the other PDFs that this will pull up, these are word searchable. It makes the file really large, but it's very helpful to be able to just type in 158 and find, go directly to the bill that you're looking for. And one last note about legislative intent is if you order the records, or if you look at the staff analyses online and it doesn't answer the question that you have, we also have the audio from the committee meetings and the House and Senate floor sessions here at the State Archives. We have the audio from 1969 to the present, It's beginning to be available online for more recent sessions, but it's not as easily accessible. So just like older legislative committee records, you can contact the archives referenced with the chapter law number or the bill number and year, and we can help you get access to the audio. So for more recent years, we can find it and send you a link up from about 2013. And for older years, we can copy audio either from audio disc or from tape. And if it's on tape, we can digitize it and put it on discs for you. Unfortunately, there are no transcripts, and they're often not annotated, so we might have to give you a lot of tapes or a lot of discs. But we can duplicate and digitize tapes and CDs and can provide them to state agencies at no charge. We just ask that you provide us a disc for the ones that we provide to you. So if there's any questions, I can take them now, or we can hold them to the end.
And if you guys have questions, just type them into the chat panel, and we'll make sure those things get answered.
And if there's no questions, I'll hand it back over to Blake, who will talk about how to get state library cards and other services from the state library.
All right, thanks, Hendry. I'm going to go ahead and show you all my screen. I've got a few services here I want to talk to you all about. They're not directly concerned with legislative research, but these are things that are concerned with legal research generally, and I believe that you will find them all helpful. So we're back here on the Legal Information Portal, and I'm going to show you just a few pages about services you might be interested in. Now, as I mentioned, we do have a state library card here for state employees, and that'll get you access to the databases and book and article delivery and a whole bunch of other resources as well. So by clicking on Get Your State Library Card, you can get to that. And it's just a very straightforward form. All you need to do is put in your information. And if you could please put in your work information so that we know what agency you work for, that would be excellent. And in 2 to 3 business days, generally speaking, you'll get a 14-digit electronic library card number. And so we'll email that right to you, and you'll be able to use that right away. You won't have to wait for a physical card. And you can use that to get into databases and request articles and a whole lot more. The next thing I want to show you is our article delivery service. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up that page, again available from the Legal Information Portal. You can use this for all kinds of research that you might do. So it's useful if you read law reviews or law journals. You can get those for free. You can get journal and magazine articles for free as well, such as Time. And all you need to do is enter in your work agency information, just like we talked about before, on the top half of this form. And on the bottom half of this form, all you need to do is enter as much information about the article as you can. So if you have the article title, the author, the name of the magazine or journal it's in, the date, as much as you can. That's all very helpful. And just hit submit down here at the bottom. And don't worry if you don't have all the details, because we're going to find the article regardless. And if we have questions about any details, we will email you and ask you about those. And all of those articles that we find for you, we will email those directly to your work account. All right, so the next thing I want to show you is our book delivery service. And I've got it open here. This is Florida Library Navigator. This is our free book request search engine. It's pretty easy to use. All you need to do is type in information about the book that you're looking for. So in this case, I'm going to do Florida Legal. So we're going to go ahead and stay on topic. All right. Well, was not expecting that. Let's try searching again. Not everything works perfectly all the time. This is what I was looking for, Florida Legal Research. published in 2014. We'll go ahead and click on that, and we want to go ahead and order that. And all you have to do is press this blue Request Item button. And what you'll do is you'll go ahead and select State Library and Archives of Florida, since that's the home library that you're using. Press Continue. And then you just enter your library card number and PIN. And we will mail that book to you, generally in 7 to 10 business days. If you are in Tallahassee, we'll send that to you through interoffice mail. And if you are outside of Tallahassee, we will send that to you through regular mail, and we'll give you a mailer and all the other materials you need to send back your book at no charge. The next thing I want to show you is some of the eBooks that we have. So I'll go ahead and open up that search page, which is again available here from our Key Legal Resources section of the Legal Information Portal. So we'll go ahead and click on Information Privacy Fundamentals, which is designed for librarians, but may be useful to you all as well. So I'll go ahead and click on that, open that up, and that is available for you to read online from your desk. And if you click on the full text PDF, you will be able to read that just like you have the book in your hand. And very high quality images. You can search within the book for terms that you might be interested in, so you don't have to read the whole thing. You can navigate on the left-hand side with all the different chapters and indexes and all the other things you need. The one thing that you'll need to do in order to access these ebooks is to make sure that you're logged in. And up here at the top of our library catalog page, you can log in with your library card number and PIN, and you'll be able to access journal articles and ebooks and a whole lot of other resources. The last thing I want to talk to you all about today is our Table of Contents service. And this is a special subscription service that we have for some of our most popular journals and magazines. And so I'll go ahead and bring that up. And what we do is basically we bring the latest magazine articles and research directly to you. And so all you have to do is fill in your work information here along with your library card number. And you can go ahead and sign up. And one of the cool things is you can scroll down and it'll tell you about all of the different journals and magazines that you can pick. So I personally really like reading Florida Trend, so I'm subscribed to that. And each week or two, depending on what the journal or magazine is, I'll get an email from my colleague saying, these are the latest articles in this issue, which ones do you want? And I let them know what I'm interested in, and they send those back as PDFs. So it's a really great service, and it'll help you keep up with all sorts of magazines and journal articles that are out there. So I encourage you all to check that out. Any questions at this point?
And we're going to give you all a few minutes to compile your questions and type them out if you've got any. But now's the time to ask them. Just put them in the chat panel.
Yeah.
And also, if there's more than one of you watching at a computer, we would love to know that for our statistics. So if you could just type into chat if there's more than one of you watching at a time.
I want to thank you all for coming today. We really appreciate your attendance. And for those of you who are members of the Florida Bar, we'll be sending a code later on with the email and handouts and everything that we send to you, so that you'll be able to submit that to the Florida Bar.
Is there any charge to our agency if we use these resources?
No, no charge.
Do you have the Florida Bar publications?
Melissa, I am fairly certain that we have some. I'm not. I would have to check on that. So if you're interested in a specific publication, I'd be happy to look into that for you.
Sylvia asked, what is the link to the journals?
Okay. Well, there's a couple different ways to get those, but since we're here at the Legal Information Portal, you can actually go click on Legal Research Databases. And I'll go ahead and click on that here, and this will bring back some of the electronic databases that are most suited to law and government and criminal justice, and you can access journals that way. If you're logged into the library catalog, you can also do a search for, let's say, Florida law in this case. And I'm not sure where our tabs are. Oh, I'm not logged in on this page, but let me go to another page. Sorry about that. Let's do a page for law and legislation, and you can click on articles and citations. That's a pretty quick way to get to articles as well. So there's two main ways to do it.
Also, if you're asking about the House and Senate journals, we'll have those links available in the handout materials that we provide.
Another question, can you get a library card if you're not a state employee?
No, I'm afraid. Well, you can get a resident card if you come here and apply in Tallahassee, but our electronic card I mentioned is only for state government employees.
What type of info is in the Florida Trends Journal?
Oh, the Florida Trend Journal is one I really like. It's a business journal, and so it keeps you updated on what are some of the things that are going on in the business world in Florida. It'll overview specific industries. It'll talk about what's going on business-wise in different regions of Florida, and it's pretty readable. I enjoy it.
What is the charge for these resources if you're not a state employee?
Well, it depends on what you are interested in. If you were interested in, for example, copies of the laws of Florida, we would charge 25 cents per page on that. And as far as database access, like I was showing you, the online journals and databases, unfortunately, that would not be available to you. Are you affiliated with a particular institution, like a university?
We're waiting for the person to respond to that question. For the archives materials, to send the links to the more recent stuff, we don't charge anything, but for the older materials, the charge is $20 per chapter law or bill, and to digitize the materials, it's $10 per tape or disc to digitize it. So those are the charges for the state archives.
And question, can you get a library card if you are a state employee but do not have a state-issued email?
I would have to check with my colleague about that. If you would, I'll take down your name, and we'll make sure to look into that.
Do I need a library card before I can access the Legal Information Portal?
You don't need it for everything on the Legal Information Portal. You can go right in and use that, but if you want to use the databases or article delivery services, you will need a card for that. So for full access, I would recommend just filling out that form. It takes just a couple minutes.
We've got a response to the question you asked. It says, no, I'm a member of the Florida Bar. I used to be a state employee.
Okay. Well, oftentimes you can get access to journals through like a public library. I know, for example, here in Leon County, where we're located, they have a journal article request service that is similar to ours. So I would visit your home library for some of the services that we've talked about here today.
How long are you able to keep physical materials checked out before they need to be returned?
You can check out a book for 28 days, and I believe you can renew it twice. And
someone asked about the recording. Yes, we're recording this. It'll be up on our YouTube page, and you guys will get sent a link to the recording after the session. And Sylvia says, I'm a paralegal member of the Florida Bar, so I'll receive the information.
We'll make sure it gets to you, Sylvia.
And regarding the non-state email, they have a judicial circuit specific email.
Yes, I do believe that we have some colleagues who work who work in the court system, and again, I can check with a colleague, and I would encourage you to sign up with that library card form, and my colleague Kim will contact you with any information she needs.
And someone says, can you show us again how you requested Trend magazine?
Oh, sure, yes. So like I said, we have our table of contents service, which is a special subscription service for some of our most popular titles. So we'll go ahead and click on Table of Contents service from the Legal Information Portal. And you'll fill in your information here. It's a fairly straightforward application. And then all you need to do is select the titles that you want. So let's say we'll do Florida Trend and New England Journal of Medicine, and here's ABA Journal. That might be of interest to you all. We've got several law reviews here, and you just check the journals you want and submit your request, and you are good to go. I personally subscribe to a number of different journals in different fields because I want to be up to date in all the different agencies that we help.
Another question, can you show us once again how to get to the Legal Information Portal?
Sure. That URL is library. It's you guys have a way to put a URL in the box, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a library.florida.gov/legal. So that URL will take you directly to it. And we have a much bigger website with lots of other information on it. This is just the more focused portal that we designed for you all, so it's a little bit easier for you to navigate.
And we'll be sending those links out in the follow-up message afterwards, which should go out in the next couple days. Does anybody have any other questions?
All right, folks, we really want to thank you for attending our webinar today. We were very glad to have you. Melissa, I'll get to that in just a moment. So we've got our general website here, info.florida.gov, for everything the library and archives and our colleagues in library development have to offer. We've got info@dos.myflorida.com. That's the library email. You'll get a direct response from one of our librarians if you email that address. We've got archives@dos.myflorida.com, and Hendry and his colleagues will email you from the archives. And then we've got direct phone numbers to the library and archives. And I see we have a few more questions, so I'd be glad to answer them.
Yep. Which services are free to state employees?
Everything that we've discussed today is free for state employees. So copies from the state library and the electronic databases, article request. Yes, the state library and archives in almost all instances are free for state employees.
And then somebody asks, is there a site for fees?
Our general fee schedule is available on the Division of Library and Information Services website. I can put the link in the text box here.
Thank you, Hendry.
But again, if you're a state employee, you generally won't have to pay for copies of laws of Florida, Florida statutes, some legislative histories, or journal articles, and a whole lot of other stuff.
Okay, we'll stay on for a few more minutes to make sure that we get all the questions answered. But for those of you that have things to do, thank you for being on with us, and we'll see you on again next time.